A dash to democracy coming up on Face the State. Lawmakers and poll workers are getting election preps into high gear, but there's a legal battle that could grind everything to a halt. We'll explain.
Food's expensive, and these are our neediest kids.
As Intel breaks ground promising jobs, there's still a heartbreaking reality in Licking County. We'll show you how hunger remains a concern and what schools are doing to help. And carrying the load with just over a week until Memorial Day, we will show you what's being done to honor our veterans right here in Columbus. Face the State starts now. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here on Face the State. I'm Tracy Townsend. Processes are moving forward and ramping up this morning for the August election. The Ohio Ballot Board met this past Thursday to prescribe ballot language and work through the constitutional amendment proposed by the General Assembly. Lawmakers passed a joint resolution last week, which leaves it to voters to decide whether a 60% supermajority should be required to make changes to the state's constitution. The law currently states a 50% plus one vote threshold to amend the Constitution.
My motion is that we would authorize my office to contract for the required advertising of the statewide issue and to authorize my office to request the controlling board for transfer of sufficient funds for that purpose.
The Franklin County Board of Elections is now recruiting more than 4,000 poll workers and reaching out to more than 300 polling locations. But there are several organizations arguing that the election violates election law, and they filed suit. But at this point, the timeline is set. Here are three key dates for you. The last day to register to vote is July 10th. Early voting will begin on July 11th, and then the election itself is August 8th. Ohio Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown made another stop in East Palestine, this time to talk with farmers. Brown held a roundtable discussion about 9 miles from where that derailment in February happened. He also toured the farm with owner Stephen Montgomery. Montgomery says he has had multiple tests, and so far all have come back clear, and his farm animals were not impacted. But one thing that was impacted was his sales.
We saw about a 50% decrease in the first couple weeks, and if that projected, we were going to have to make hard decisions about cash flow and cutting staff and thinking about all the other things that were involved.
Montgomery says the farm is starting to come back, and Senator Brown says he will keep returning to East Palestine until everyone's lives are back to normal. Political analysts are already looking ahead to future elections. This opinion piece in the Columbus Dispatch raised questions about whether Senator Brown will be able to hold on to his seat. So we asked him about it.
I don't pay attention to stories like that. My focus is always on Ohio workers. It always has been my whole career, standing up to China on bad trade policy. My focus has been on veterans. I sit on the Veterans Committee, the most nonpartisan committee in the Senate, and we've passed the PACT Act. I'm going to every county, eventually every county in the state, to encourage veterans to sign up for this. The PACT Act says that any veteran any of our men and women in uniform who are exposed to these football field-sized burn pits in Iraq and Afghanistan and wherever they're serving, that they get treatment at the Columbus VA. They get treatment at any VA they want to go to. My focus will always be that, and will continue to be.
Receivership by the FDIC.
Ohio's other U.S. Senator J.D. Vance is taking the CEO of Silicon Valley Bank to task on Capitol Hill. He took aim at the bonuses that were given during the collapse.
What were the amounts of your cash bonuses in 2021? Do you recall?
2021, I believe, was $3 million.
And your cash bonus in 2022 was?
$1.5 million.
So in 2022 in particular, you paid yourself a $1.5 million cash bonus, even as the stock, the value of the company that you were managing declined by 2/3. That's not bad work if you can get it. As Senator Kramer and I were joking, we would be willing to screw something up for much less than $1.5 million. The stock price fell in 2022. So it's pretty clear the cash bonus was still $1.5 million despite SVB's stock falling by 2/3 that same year. Now, do you think it's appropriate to pay yourself $1.5 million when the stock of the company you manage declines by 65%?
Senator, there are 2 points to your question. First
Please.
is that the determination of my compensation is made by the board of directors and their assessment. And the second part relating to this question on stock, I held roughly 5 times the amount of stock that I was required to, and so clearly I was impacted when the stock price declined.
So, Mr. Becker, you say that the decision was made by the board of directors, so let's focus on them. Do you think that they were wise to award you $1.5 million in cash compensation bonus when the decline of the stock price was 65+%?
Senator, I believe they looked at the performance against the goals that were set up.
Columbus is now named a workforce hub by the Biden-Harris administration. One of the main drivers comes from what's being built in Licking County. Yes, Intel. Columbus is one of 5 cities to receive the recognition. It's a new initiative aimed at connecting American workers to jobs to help meet growing workforce demands. 10 TV's Carly Dion has more on what this could bring to Central Ohio's future.
Columbus has emerged as a center of investment.
Heather Boucher is a member of President Biden's Council of Economic Advisors and chief economist for his Investing in America cabinet. Boucher says Columbus was named today as a workforce hub, primarily for its partnership with Intel and the Ohio Semiconductor Collaboration Network to develop a 2-year program to train workers in the semiconductor field.
And this is, in fact, now a model for other places across the country. And that's exactly what these workforce hubs are about.
The hubs are a new way to support filling jobs created through federal funding, which includes legislation like the CHIPS and Science Act, signed into law last August. It will provide a more than $50 billion boost to the U.S. semiconductor industry.
Intel wouldn't have happened without the CHIPS Act.
Columbus Mayor Ginther says that funding will in part support Intel's plan to bring semiconductor manufacturing facilities to Licking County, which is expected to bring 20,000 jobs to the state. Now, the administration will partner with state and local officials, employers, unions, community colleges, high schools, and other stakeholders to ensure a diverse and skilled workforce can meet that demand.
Really trying to make sure that Columbus State is leading the way for opening doors for Columbus residents, particularly young people that are coming out of Columbus City Schools, to take advantage of some of these great opportunities.
Boucher says the administration also acknowledges Columbus's effort to pioneer a model to diversify its registered apprenticeships, which she says is now being replicated across the country.
And so it was a good place to come and try to develop models and collaborate together to do so.
Carly Dion, 10 TV News.
And our community is changing to keep up with this incoming investment. This week, mayors of several Central Ohio cities met at the Columbus Metropolitan Club, and they went over the key strategies they're preparing for the facilities now being built in Licking County. The primary concerns by some county and city leaders are, can we keep up? The key areas are housing, transportation, and schools.
We pay for almost 100% of our school district, not only the construction, but the operation. And so every time that we start a housing start, we need to carefully consider how it impacts our school district.
Intel broke ground on the project back in September. The first plant is set to be finished by the year 2025. And as Licking County does prepare for Intel, many families there are finding it harder to make ends meet as inflation raises grocery prices. While Intel grabs most of the headlines about moving to Licking County, keeping up with the demand for hunger is often a hidden issue. And as 10 TV's Kevin Landers found out, the need goes well beyond food.
So this started probably roughly about 10 years ago. A group of teachers decided that, we have kids in need and we need to think about ways to support them.
You're looking at a food pantry inside Licking Valley High School.
Food's expensive and these are our neediest kids.
Kids in need of food, but it's not just beans and tuna fish. Sometimes it's a lot more.
For a teenager, especially a teenage boy, to say, hey, I'm hungry, or hey, do you have any deodorant? That takes a lot.
And so we've used pantry funds to run to Walmart, buy a air mattress and sheets and send them home with an inflatable bed so they have someplace to sleep that night.
Everything you see on these shelves is donated. Anyone who asks for food gets 2 boxes that can last a month.
We're currently serving about 26 families a month. That doesn't maybe sound off the top like a large number, but when you consider that in our building every day we have about 525 students, and that is probably about 50 students that are getting food to take home. So we're feeding about 10% of our student body.
The school says 40% of its student body qualifies for free and reduced lunch, but provides every student with a free meal so no one goes hungry.
You see news about inflation, you see news about struggles around people getting jobs and things like that, and then we actually have faces to put with the names.
Organizers say many of the families they serve are two-income households, and yet they still struggle to put food on the table.
We've had families that are having utilities shut off.
The pantry recently added a washer and dryer so kids can have clean clothes. There's a fridge and freezer to provide fresh fruit and meat. They say 10 years ago, this pantry started in a closet.
This has grown into something we could not have imagined 10 years ago.
As more families struggle to make ends meet, workers say they may need more room in the future, so kids who come to class don't arrive with empty stomachs.
At the end of the day, we're here for these kids.
Kevin Landers, 10 TV News.
The school also operates a food pantry for its elementary and middle schools. It recently added a drive-up window for parents so children don't have to carry the food in their backpacks. The Ohio State Board of Trustees is taking issue with the State House proposal. At the same time, lawmakers are moving it forward. We'll show you the arguments on both sides.
I want to welcome Dr. Angela Chapman back to the stage.
And the interim becomes the permanent. What's next for the leader of Columbus City Schools? And Fashion First, meet the man whose skill and style helped put Columbus on the map.
I want to welcome Dr. Angela Chapman back to the stage.
Columbus City Schools has selected its next leader, Dr. Angela Chapman, the interim superintendent, now set to officially take over that top administrative role for the largest school district in our state. The Ohio Senate has passed legislation making major changes to higher education. We're following this with our partners at the Dispatch. The Republican-controlled Senate voted 21-10 to restrict mandatory diversity training, ban faculty strikes, and penalize professors who fail to create classrooms they describe as free from bias. The House will take up that measure soon. The Ohio State Board of Trustees, sent a rare rebuke of this legislation, writing in part, "We acknowledge the issues raised by this proposal, but believe there are alternative solutions that will not undermine the shared governance model of universities, risk weakened academic rigor, or impose extensive and expensive new reporting mandates." Again, that's part of a statement from the Ohio State University Board of Trustees. Last weekend, the Verified team took us inside classrooms around the country to hear from teachers who say they are burned out, fed up, and hanging on by a thread. In part 2 of our Verify in Focus special, we look at what's being done to get more teachers into the classroom.
A crisis is growing in America's K-12 schools.
We're losing teachers faster than we can get new ones in.
According to the data from the National Center for Education Statistics, the percent of college grads earning a bachelor's degree in education is roughly half of what it was in 1970, dropping from more than 170,000 to less than 90,000 in 2019. Coupled with high rates of early retirement and stress-induced career changes, the teacher pool is drying up.
I mean, it's a crisis, in my opinion. It's not going to get better without taking some intentional steps to make it better.
So who's going to teach America's children? That question has school districts, lawmakers, universities, and educational organizations scrambling to find answers before it's too late. One strategy, at least at the state level, has been
lowering standards and lowering requirements for entry into teaching.
That's Heather Pesky, president of the National Council on Teacher Quality. In addition to having a bachelor's degree, most states used to require teachers to pass a teaching certification exam before being allowed to teach. But since 2020, Pesky says at least 12 states have removed or lowered the requirements for teachers to get that certification. Meaning in places like Alabama and Missouri, even if teaching candidates don't pass the state exam, they could still be given a license to teach. A change that Tanya Chestnut, a board member for Alabama State Board of Education, justified by saying, "When you're in a crisis, you tend to do things you probably would not ordinarily do. I think this will definitely bring some relief without compromising the quality of education." High school English teacher Violeta Duran and middle school instructional coach Evan Shin aren't as optimistic. They worry lowering standards will result in students getting an underqualified teacher.
I think there is a danger in that.
We are just putting people in classrooms that are not credentialed or who are not ready to be in the classroom. But because of the fact that we're looking for a warm body, we are saying like, oh, okay, well, good enough.
But Pesky says it's not enough.
This will result in a less effective teacher workforce. And that's the opposite of what our students need, particularly now on the heels of this pandemic.
University of Pennsylvania professor Richard Ingersoll has studied teachers and their working conditions for more than 20 years. He says these desperate measures of lowering standards to teach will only make more teachers leave the profession.
Generally, the less prepared people, the emergency and temporary licenses, for instance, that are issued, those people quit at higher rates.
His research already showed that nearly half of teachers with proper training leave the profession within the first 5 years. Nonprofit organizations are also scrambling to find solutions to the teacher shortage crisis. Transcend is a nonprofit that works with schools to test innovative ways to help teachers enter and stay in the profession. They say they've seen success elevating people from non-teaching roles, like coaches and parents, into teaching roles for the short term to ease the burden on existing teachers. Steve Carlin, a former superintendent in the rural Garden City School District in southwest Kansas, had a similar idea 15 years ago. Back then, Carlin says his open teaching positions were mostly in high school math and science classes. To fill those roles, he'd take elementary school teacher candidates that he didn't have classrooms for and pay for their training and then put them in those high school classrooms. And that worked until 2016. But then the teaching shortages became so problematic that
We haven't been able to utilize that strategy because we can't even fill all of our elementary classrooms.
So Carlin dipped into his pool of substitute teachers to fill those roles. But now,
The pool is completely dry.
while schools are trying to find ways to fill their vacancies, the federal government is trying to address teacher shortages with money.
Let's give public school teachers a raise.
2 proposals in Congress aim to do just that. The Pay Teachers Act, introduced by Senator Bernie Sanders in March, and the American Teacher Act, introduced by Representative Frederica Wilson in the House in February. If passed, they would set a minimum starting salary of $60,000 for all U.S. public school teachers, a big jump from the national average starting salary of $41,770 in the 2020 to 2021 school year. Neither bill has been voted on, but bipartisan support for both is growing. As of April 2023, the Senate bill is backed by 7 co-sponsors and has the support of more than 50 major education organizations, while the House bill has more than 50 co-sponsors. There's also money for teachers baked into legislation passed during the pandemic. In March 2021, the American Rescue Plan Act allocated $130 billion to K-12 schools. The White House says schools can use that money to invest in teacher pipeline programs, increase teacher salaries, and hire more teachers. The U.S. Departments of Education and Labor issued a joint statement to state lawmakers and administrators, urging them to use this relief money to specifically increase pay for teachers. But Duran says that isn't happening at her school. She says schools are hesitant to spend the money on long-term investments because they worry the aid will eventually run out, leaving schools with salaries they can't afford to pay. But money doesn't have to come from the federal government or go to the schools directly. The University of Wisconsin-Madison School of Education is using private funding from alumni and supporters to incentivize more people to become teachers.
We're saying to any student who wants to come into any of our 15 different teacher education programs that we will pay the cost of their tuition, their testing fees, and their licensing fees.
She says in exchange, the students must pledge to teach in Wisconsin public schools for 3 to 4 years. The $25 million privately funded program, launched in August of 2020, also offers mentorship and professional development support for alums. Support from a program that former teacher Sarah Coys wishes she had during the early years of her teaching.
I think there's a lot of support for first-year teachers. And I think people think, oh, after your second or third year, you're good to go, you're a pro. but I think that those supports need to stay in place.
Duran, who teaches in Southern California, says she'd like to see Wisconsin's Pledge program be adopted by more schools.
I see it as a positive, like any program that can do that. I mean, it would be great if, UCLA could do that or USC.
So what do current teachers think will help inspire others to join this career path? For a long time, high school teacher Joaquin Rodriguez says passion alone was what sparked that interest. But now,
when you have that burnout and that fatigue, that passion piece is the first thing to go.
Educators like Rodriguez, Shin, and Duran say they're still hanging on. And when they ask themselves why they're still doing this,
At the end of the day, it's the students. There's an energy that they bring that is unmatched. Even just showing care and concern from students sometimes, that is enough to kind of be like, okay, we're gonna be okay.
Ohio teachers are certainly feeling the pain. The Ohio president of the National Education Association told us earlier this month, education is becoming a tough industry for educators, mentally and financially.
Educators need more than just thanks. We need fair compensation in order to attract and retain the best people in our profession.
This union spokesperson says the schools also need the resources to raise future generations. Still ahead on Face the State.
Today I'm actually carrying the load for 6 Air Force service members that unfortunately didn't come back with us while I was there in Afghanistan.
How you can still honor your family's hero with 1 week until Memorial Day. Hundreds marched across the city of Columbus this last week. It was part of a nationwide relay to honor fallen veterans. The march is run by Carry the Load, a nonprofit that connects Americans with veterans, first responders, and their families. Columbus, just one stop along a 20,000-mile journey. Participants walk and bike across 48 states in 32 days.
It's very emotional. I fight back tears the whole time to hear the stories and what this means, and I think what it means to our fellow service members, what it means to the families of those that have fallen that are also here today. It brings up a lot of emotion, and I'm really happy that something like this exists.
That's Crystal Sorensen. She's a retired captain in the Army. She served in Afghanistan, and she honored service members she served with but did not make it home. Carry the Load's goal is to raise $2.25 million for military and veteran families. You can still honor your family member or loved one on the Carry the Load website. The man with the plan for fashion, small business development, and launching Columbus to its cutting-edge style status is moving on. Thomas McClure launched Fashion Week 14 years ago in our town. It's taken off from the runway to its own high-profile destination in downtown Columbus. That's 7 shops on South 3rd Street. I talked with McClure about the journey and what's next.
Fashion speaks to all of us. It's a universal language.
Thomas McClure is a master translator and transformer.
But I mean, look at this.
Taking Columbus from a capital city in 2010 to its current status as a capital of style.
Back then, in 2010, there really wasn't a fashion scene. Really nothing at all except for Highball Halloween, which I love Highball Halloween, right? Couture costumes. But nothing was specifically industry related.
The founder and executive director of the nonprofit Columbus Fashion Council is credited with changing that, creating a platform and marketing space to help launch local designers, which eventually helped land the attention of the high-profile Council of Fashion Designers of America.
Let's drop a few names. Anna Wintour used to be the president of that board. Tom Ford just, his term was up. Now it's Tom Brown. These are big names in the fashion world. They came to Columbus. They came to Fashion Week Columbus last year. They came back again this year for the Business of Fashion Roundtable. Oh yeah, that's pretty.
The elements of style created a pattern for profit. Wow. McClure and his team collaborated with city developers in opening Columbus's first fashion and retail district called Common Thread. Once a row of empty stores, now it's the stop for the stylish.
We implanted 6 to 7 small businesses, all designers who have showcased at Fashion Week Columbus, who are members of the Columbus Fashion Council, and they opened up their own boutiques. Now, it is the only place in Columbus you can go to where you know that you're shopping completely local.
After years of success hemmed up in Columbus, McClure is moving on, but not far from fashion.
I have a schedule of fashion shows I'm producing, But what I really want to do is I want to take the blueprint that I created for Fashion Week Columbus and show other cities that don't have Fashion Week how to do it.
Translating that universal language forward, weaving together community and business to make a statement of culture.
And it was easy at the time.
Now, the search for a new executive director is underway. The mission, though, remains the same as the Columbus Fashion Council provides scholarships to student designers, in addition to serving as, again, that platform for local and emerging designers. Well, we certainly have appreciated having you with us today, and we wish you a great week.